Hey everyone, it's Lisa from the blog farmhouseonboone.com, and I'm here today with my sister Laura from the channel and blog Our Oily House. Today we are going to make a healthy from scratch Thanksgiving feast. We're actually gonna have a Friendsgiving in my barn tonight because we had my sister's wedding there. Everything is still really cleared out and pretty, and so it just completely makes sense. And we both have several recipes on our blogs that work really well for a from scratch Thanksgiving. So we're going to make half of the things on my channel, and then you'll have to go over to Laura's channel to see the other half. So some of the things we're gonna make are green bean casserole, which I have a recipe for on my blog. So we will also leave links for these actual recipes so that you can reference back to those once Thanksgiving is here. Also, I do have a free Thanksgiving ebook that you can get at bit.ly/Thanksgiving from scratch. And then also, these are all on our blog, everything we're gonna make, so you can reference that. We'll have all the links down in the description box below. Also, cranberry sauce. I have a turkey in the oven right now. We're gonna make Laura's cranberry meatballs on her channel for an appetizer. Sourdough stuffing, so I have some bread, sourdough bread rising that I'm gonna make sourdough stuffing with. That's gonna be good.
I'm excited to try that.
What else do we have? Oh, sweet potato casserole. So there's some sweet potatoes in the oven.
Pumpkin pie.
Laura has a pumpkin pie recipe. So we are just going to start cooking, bring you along, share with you the recipes, and then we're gonna have a really nice Friendsgiving tonight. It's gonna be delicious. For the turkey, I just filled the cavity with celery and onion and then covered it with some olive oil, salt, pepper. You could add some herbs, and I cooked it in a 325-degree oven for about 3 hours. At the same time, I put some sweet potatoes on the top rack to get going for the sweet potato casserole. Once the sweet potatoes were soft, which took about an hour, I allowed them to cool for a few minutes and then peeled them all and placed them in a blender with a half a cup of cream, a half a cup of melted butter, a third of a cup of maple syrup. You could also do honey, 1 egg, 2 teaspoons of vanilla, 2 teaspoons of ground cinnamon, a teaspoon of sea salt, and a pinch of nutmeg. And then I added them to a greased baking dish with a little bit of butter. Next, I cleaned the blender and made the pecan topping by adding 2 cups of roughly chopped pecans, a half a cup of einkorn flour, a half a teaspoon of ground cinnamon, and 2 tablespoons of pure maple syrup, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 5 tablespoons of melted butter. I just pulsed that until it was pretty rough and then spread it over top the sweet potatoes. And then I baked it at 375 degrees for about 30 minutes. For the sourdough stuffing, I melted 1 stick of salted butter in a cast iron skillet. I cut 1 loaf of sourdough bread into 1-inch slices and then 1-inch chunks. I spread that out onto a parchment lined baking sheet and poured about half the butter over the bread, tossed it together and baked for 20 minutes just to get the bread nice and toasty. You can find the recipe for my sourdough bread also down in the description box below and here on my channel. Next, I roughly chopped 3 stalks of celery and 1 medium onion and added it to the pan with the melted butter over medium heat and just allowed it to saute for about 5 to 10 minutes to get soft. I chopped up some fresh thyme and sage, about a couple tablespoons of each, and added it to the veggies. You could also use dried for this. 2 teaspoons of salt and a half teaspoon of pepper to the veggies. In a large bowl, I combined 3 cups of homemade chicken broth with 2 large eggs, and then added the toasted bread and the sauteed vegetables to the bowl, mixed, and allowed the liquid to be absorbed by the bread. I poured the stuffing back into the cast iron skillet and baked for 20 to 30 minutes at 350 degrees or until it was golden brown. Cranberry sauce is a favorite every year. I absolutely love this. To make it is super, super simple. I just add 12 ounces of fresh cranberries, a half a cup of apple cider, a half a cup of honey or maple syrup, and the zest and juice of 1 medium orange to a pot. I like to use my Dutch oven. I bring it to a simmer and allow it to cook until until the cranberries start to pop, so about 10 minutes or so. Then I take it off the heat and allow it to cool. It does thicken as it cools. For the green bean casserole, first I start by preheating the oven to 400 degrees. I boiled some fresh green beans for 5 minutes and then drained them and set them aside. While the green beans were cooking, I made the fried onions. So to make the fried onions, I preheated a cast iron skillet. I thinly sliced some onions. Now the thinner you get them, the crispier they get. And then I preheated some coconut oil in a cast iron skillet. Now to a different bowl, I combined a half a cup of einkorn flour, 2 teaspoons salt, a 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder, a 1/4 teaspoon of onion, and freshly ground pepper. I combined those, added the thin onions to that mixture, and then in small batches fried them in coconut oil to make sure that they were nice and crispy. I set the fried onions aside and then started working on the cream sauce. So to do that, I added 2 tablespoons of butter to a cast iron skillet, 16 ounces of portobello mushrooms sliced, and then just sauteed the mushrooms until they were brown. To that, I sprinkled on 4 tablespoons of einkorn flour and mixed it to make a roux. I like to first start with any extra einkorn flour from the fried onions because then it's just less waste. And then I add a little bit more to make up the total of 4 tablespoons. I added in a cup of homemade chicken or turkey broth, or even beef if you don't have anything else, and then simmered for about 5 minutes. To that I added salt and a cup of cream. Next, I just poured the sauce over the green beans and then add the fried onions on top and baked for about 15 minutes. All right, well, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you were able to have a healthy and happy Thanksgiving and enjoy some of our delicious recipes. Be sure to head over to Laura's channel at Our Oily House and get the rest of this Thanksgiving feast and some shots of our Friendsgiving.